What is up, guys? It is Sam, the Raid Man. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a different video. I want to give you guys some advice. This is probably the most common questions I answer on my Discord. Particularly, people join my Discord to ask me help about clan boss teams, and I'm always happy to answer questions. But I want to kind of field a ton of those questions and put 10 of the tips that I give people all the time. If you come into my Discord and say, hey, Sam, my clan boss team's not working, you will receive some of these questions, if not all 10 of them. So I want to take a look at basically 10 reasons your clan boss speed tune may be falling apart. Now, this is less applicable to like, I throw a ton of champions in there and they run, right? Or I've got, a Wixwell team and everyone's kind of one-to-one. That's a little bit different, more about like the Demitha teams, the Maneater teams, like the unkillable type teams that you might see. So you see like the Myth Air right here, another Myth Air, some buff extension teams. There's a Bat Eater right there. So any of these teams, all of these questions would be applicable. So I want to go over the 10 reasons your speed tune or your run might be falling apart. We're going to start with some pretty simple, maybe obvious ones, but I still see it happen. Every single one of these I've seen happen. So let's say you're running a Maneater team and you look at your Maneater, or I look at your Maneater and it's not working and your Maneater is not booked. Now, certain champions don't need all of their skills booked. For example, Maneater does not need his A1 or his A2 booked, but the A3 has to be booked. Every speed tune that's built around Maneater or Demitha or any of these champions are assuming their skills are booked. So if his 5-turn cooldown is now on a 6 or 7-turn cooldown, it's not gonna work. Not just having Maneater is not enough. Same thing with Ares, Deacon, Seeker, Demitha, whoever. Your buff extenders, you need their skills to be booked. Super quick announcement, got some pretty exciting news from Plarium. I now have my own promo code. So if you want to start a second account, or if you want to start your first account, if you've never played Raid before, you can use this link code to download the game. I showed this in one of my videos, but basically if you use this code, it will give you a free Karato Fox Hunter and 3 epics, Fane, Romero, and Vergis. And here it is, but I'll go ahead and put this in the description of my video. If you use this, you would get, like I talked about, the legendary champion from the Shadowkin faction, Karato Fox Hunter, who's a good damage dealer and pretty good control. A great kickstart if you want to start a new account, or like I said, if you just want to start a second account, you can also pair this code with the Monkey King code or the Superpowers code and get one of those great champions as well. The second one is one that a lot of beginners don't really understand, is the clan boss changing affinity. When a clan boss is at 100% all the way down to 51% health, they are in void affinity. Like these bosses that haven't been touched, once they drop below 50%, they gain an affinity and they become a little bit different. So we have magic, force, and force. We don't have a spirit today, but spirit is typically the nasty one because the clan boss will begin to place one debuff. It can be decrease accuracy, decrease speed, and decrease attack. I believe it's decreased attack. I think magic is decreased accuracy, force is decreased attack, and spirit for sure is decreased speed. And the decreased speed, if you don't have any way to account for it, to cleanse it or block it, it will kill your speed tune all the time. You'll test people, test their things on void, and it'll work, maybe even on magic or force. The second spirit happens, they die, they don't know why. That is why. Decreased speed not being accounted for. Typically you want to bring in like a Doom Priest to cleanse it right after it happens, or you want to bring in a block debuffs champion, i.e. Under Priest Brogni or something like that. Okay, next up, these are going to be champions in particular that mess things up. So for example, I've been doing these series where I'm testing all these different clan boss damage dealers. You guys really seem to enjoy it, so I will continue to do that. But one of the requests I've gotten a few times is Whisper, and Whisper is amazing. She's even plus a 6-star awaken +1 for me. The issue is Whisper can grant extra turns. Right? If you can grant an extra turn, then you can throw off most of the speed tunes. So this one right here, attacks one enemy 2 times, grants an extra turn if they're under decreased defense on weekend. Well then, yes, that's part of it. So that is an issue. Potentially you could turn this off, but then on the passive, 10% chance of granting an extra turn whenever the champion lands a critical hit. They're going to be critting all the time. She's a damage dealer. She should have 100% crit rate. So she's going to have 10% chance. You will get extra turns and that will throw the speed tune off. If you wanted to see why that will throw the speed tune off, I'll kind of just show you like a clan boss calculator on the Jedi website. This is like just this is the Mythbuster team. But basically, if some one of these people gains an extra turn, they will lose their speed buff or the increased speed buff, and then the thing will fall out of tune. So basically, let's pretend that we're just going to make Seeker a little bit faster and wait until it falls apart. There we go. It'll look something like this. And now Demitha is not going last every single turn. Now we're not going 3-1. And we're not having block damage up every single time the clan boss hits us. So pretty simple. You just can't have champions. There are a few weird teams. I think the Bat Eater specifically allows it, but most teams do not allow for champions that grant extra turns. I'm trying to remember other champions who do extra turns, but there definitely are. Grant extra turn. Gergo grants an extra turn. Hefrat grants an extra turn on himself. Turvold grants an extra turn. Typically, Turvold's kind of a weird case because he gives himself increased speed. That's also why you can't use like relentless, gear on somebody. Brodos grants an extra turn as A1. He's not going to work. Brachus, his is not an extra turn. His is when he is revived. NX grants an extra turn when he drops below 10% or 50%, 10% health, which is why he does not work for man-eater teams. Necmo would not work. Whisper does not work. So there's not too many champions that do that. Genbo would not work. You just have to turn off that skill basically. But Whisper, you can't really turn off her passive. So that's the issue. That will throw speed tunes out, especially if you're in a speed tune with increased speed. Similar to champions who grant extra turns, champions who gain turn meter for themselves or for others. So sometimes you can do the calculations and make it work. A common example is Ninja. If you go to the Deadwood Jedi website and look at teams, there will be this team and this team with Ninja, because he gives himself extra turn meter on his A1. The only issue is he only gains the extra turn meter when he crits, which is super annoying. So when he gets a weak hit, he will not gain that extra turn meter. And so on Spirit Affinity, he will not get the extra turn meter. He basically throws B-tunes off. So he is a nightmare. Razelvarg, there are teams built around him, but each hit gains turn meter. So if you throw in an ally attacker, I've made this mistake. I was building a Razelvarg team, threw an ally attacker with Cardiel. The speed tune didn't work. And like, what's happening? It's because Razelvarg is giving himself extra turn meter and falling out of sync. Also, champions who give turn meter to other people. So positive effects, it'll be fill turn meter. Let's see, Lady Kimmy, whenever they receive a debuff, you gain extra turn meter. Molly, whenever you're hit, you gain extra turn meter. Let's see who else. Somebody does it on their A1. Maybe Blind Seer or no. I don't know exactly who it is, but people can get it on their extra one. Grand Oak does it on one of these, fills out turn meter of allies by 20%. Skull Lord gives it to himself on his A1. Ashworth gives it to everybody on her A1 if she crits. Skrank gives it to himself. This is another request I've got. So you just can't have that. Basically, the speed tune needs to be exact, and things like that they'll throw it off. So that was number 4. Again, on the same theme of gaining extra turn meter. You are not allowed to gain extra turn meter, and so one of the most common things that I see would be either of 2 masteries. Rapid response, 30% chance of increasing turn meter when a buff is removed or expires cast by this champion. That will throw things off. All you need to do is gain 10% turn meter once, and that will throw the speed tune off. Arcane Celerity, 30% chance of increasing turn meter by 10% when a debuff cast by this champion is removed or expires. This is more common. This is a great mastery for PvE champions. So for example, somebody like a Ragash who does decreased defense and stun, that's a great pass. I mean, that's a great skill to have, right? Like this is a great one to have because when one of those debuffs falls off, he gets turn meter and he's getting back to his skills sooner. Same thing with Mithrala. That's a great one to have. But in Clan Boss, those are big no-nos. No gaining turn meter. Similar to that, talking about masteries, cooldown decreasing masteries. Now this is only applicable for people that are an integral part of the speed tune. So again, let's run back to one of these. Let's just pull up my clan. One of these speed tunes right here. So this is a Myth Heir, Deacon, Seeker, Demitha, Newt, and Eris. Newt is a damage dealer, so he can kind of do whatever he wants, except for gaining turn meter or getting extra turns, right? We already discussed that. Deacon, Seeker, Demitha, Eris, if they have any mastery, no cycle of magic, if they're in 4-piece reflex, if they're in 4-piece merciless, where they have a chance to decrease a skill cooldown, that's a no-no. You cannot decrease skill cooldowns on champions that are part of the speed tune. I know shield teams are kind of a unique outlier to that, but mostly for that one, we're talking about block damage, unkillable teams. If they are part of the speed tune, Painkeeper, Maneater, Warcaster, Helicath, they cannot decrease skill cooldowns. That was number 6. Number 7 is going to be one of the most complicated ones, and that's going to be speed sets or any set that grants a speed bonus. So for example, speed gives you a 12% bonus, right? But the issue with that is 12%. If you have 100 base speed, 12% of that is 12.00. There's no decimals or anything like that. But once you get down to more specific numbers, you get to more specific decimal places. So for example, this Demitha is 316.09. But if I say she has 1 speed set instead of 3 speed sets, she's now 316.61. And I know you might not think it makes a difference, but it really does. And that's why you need to use the Deadwood Jedi calculator when you're building the team for the first time. Also, Lore of Steel makes a difference. So again, back to our 3 sets, 316.09. If we change it to Lore of Steel, now 315.6. This makes a big difference. You need to have everything in here accurately and see, does it work? I'm scrolling down. Is Demitha going last with the A3 every single turn? She is, so that doesn't make an issue. But if I have her at 299 with no Lore of Steel, that still works. See what takes the messer up right there. 303 with Lore of Steel, with no Lore of Steel. There we go. Lydia is now going. So it doesn't take much to mess things up. So there are very specific numbers with these things, and it's difficult to calculate because some sets give a very strange amount of speed. Merciless gives 5% speed, so I always put this in as a perception set because perception's in there that gives 5%. Same thing with Slayer, but then when you get up here, you get more speed. There's other ones too. I think Righteous maybe gives some speed at 10% speed, so I put that as 2 perception sets. It's just a little weird. But that brings me to my next point, talking about sets. This is super niche, and I discovered this, and I was very happy or proud of myself that I discovered this issue. The Slayer set. Once you have 4 pieces Slayer, every time you hit with an AoE ability, you get 5% turn meter. And so, for example, Geomancer has an AoE on his A1. So if I were to put my Geomancer in 4-piece Slayer, every time he does the A1 against a clan boss, he will get 5% turn meter, which again, after a few times, will throw the whole thing out of sync and mess you up. So Slayer set, 4 pieces or higher, can become an issue, which I thought is very, very interesting. Okay, we're coming down to the end. That was number 8. I've got 2 more items. Now these again are going to be more of the advanced ones, particularly for teams like the budget unkillable, right? So that is a man-eater, a painkeeper, and stun target 2 damage dealers. It's a good way to get a 2 key, but it's a very like intro level to Ultra Nightmare clan boss. I doubt you will see one in my clan. I think everyone 1 keys here, but teams like that and potentially some other teams, you have to decide where the stun is going to go. And that's called stun targeting. So basically what you want is you want to have a designated person in your team that is going to be targeted to take the stun. So this is a force affinity team. So I would pick a magic affinity champion to take my stun. Now this team obviously is different. We don't have to worry about that, but some teams do. So let's pretend we did. I would want Frozen Banshee to take it and not Seeker, because if Seeker takes it and he gets stunned and loses a turn, it will throw out the speed tune. If Frozen Banshee takes it, we lose that on turn of damage, but the team will continue going. So in this case, I would want Frozen Banshee. But then if tomorrow it switches to Spirit Affinity, they're not going to target Frozen Banshee. It's going to target probably Cardiel, Demitha, or Lydia. So I would need to have another version of the team with a different stun target in there. It's very difficult. It's very complicated. Another really common example of that is the Myth Air team, or no, the Myth Fu team. So that's Fu Shan, Demitha, Seeker, Heiress, and then one other champion. There's no Deacon in that one. You need Fu Shan to be the target, not Heiress. They're both force affinity, right? But if Heiress takes it, she can't cleanse because she can't cleanse herself when she's stunned. She can't cleanse, she can't place the increased speed. So she cannot take the stun. So there are other ways. There are ways to do that. Typically, one of the ways you do that is you give them this mastery, the steadfast max HP one that kind of counts as like a buff, but it's a little complicated. But stun targeting can often throw speed tunes off. Okay, and lastly, this one is pretty niche, but I have seen it a lot, especially in like Wixwell teams or any team that goes really, really long. If you bring in a champion that brings in a lot of buffs, particularly a person who places like a new buff every turn, the time I've seen this the most is with continuous heal buffs. So let's see if we can find an example. Tuhanarok on her A1 places a continuous heal on herself. Now, if we're on a team where we're endlessly extending these buffs, she's going to place more and more and more. And then when Demitha tries to place 1 turn block damage on, she can't because we have 10 buffs on. I've also seen this with Bad El Khazar. He places 2 poisons on his ability. Is this 15 or is the big one? He's in my vault. That's why. Every 3 turns, he can place 2 continuous heals on everybody. And so this can very quickly fill up your buff bar. So you cannot get block debuffs out or block damage or unkillable, something like that. So 10 buffs would be too many. Padraig, I think, places continuous heals. Anyways, just something to be cognizant of. I have seen too many buffs kill teams basically. So again, we have, well, we'll summarize all of them. We had champs not being booked. That one's pretty simple. They have to be booked, especially if they're part of the speed tune. You need to account for Spirit Affinity and the decreased speed debuff. Cannot have champions who gain extra turns like Whisper. Cannot have champions who gain turn meter for themselves or others, like on their A1, like Skull Lord or like Ninja. Cannot have the turn meter mastery, so that would be the 2 that give you turn meter when your buffs end or your debuffs end. That's number 6, or that's number 5. Number 6 is cooldown and decreasing masteries, especially for the people that are part of the team. You cannot have Cycle of Magic or anything, any set that would decrease their skill cooldowns. You need to be cognizant of your sets and any type of percentages of speed, Lore of Steel, speed sets, perception sets. All of those sets need to be plugged into the calculator. That's number 7. Number 8 is the Slayer set. If you have an AoE on your champion, you need to turn it off or you need to not have the Slayer set at 4 pieces or more. Number 9, stun targeting. You have to be cognizant of that, especially if your team does not have a way to deal with the stun and you need to direct it. That's going to be very complicated and something that can kill your speed tune. And lastly, we have the 10 buffs. Too many buffs, particularly with people who place stacking buffs like continuous heal. So I know we rambled a lot. I know we talked a lot. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Hopefully this will help you troubleshoot things if you're having issues with your clan boss team. Like I said, feel free to join my Discord if you have any questions. I'm always happy to build teams for people and or answer their questions. So thank you for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel and I'll see you on the next one.